Good evening and welcome to episode 9 of Reading Between the Lineups. I'm your host, DRC, and I've still got an artifact for my interview with JMallet. So let me go ahead and dump that first. There we go. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. I got a great show for you guys tonight. My guest tonight to be interviewed is JMallet. You guys know him in the Discord as JMallet. The Lord of Time, as I've termed him here. He is the manager of the Greenwich Time Lords, two-time Perfect League champion, member of the BFF, very successful member of the BFF, a high-level tourney player, as you'll learn. He came away with an SE Noodles Han earlier this game cycle. So someone who's absolutely experienced a lot of success and honestly someone who's doing some pretty unprecedented stuff with regards to roster and in-game management. So we'll dive into all of that and more. And also, we're giving away 30,000 points tonight. 30,000 perfect points. And we're going to do it in a slightly different way than we typically have. So we're still going to do our drawing that we always do. When the interview is over, I will draw random names, and those who have registered will have an opportunity to win 10,000 perfect points. But instead of drawing 3 names like we normally do, I'm going to draw 2 names tonight. And the third winner is going to be determined at the very, very end, and it's going to be a little bit of a scavenger hunt. But I won't tease that too much. We'll just leave that there. Stick around, should be some fun, and we'll see who ends up winning that third set of 10,000 perfect points. All right, so let's jump into our content tonight. And before we jump into the interview, as we always do, we do a segment that I like to call Hit and Run, where I give my take on something going on in the Perfect Team universe or my take on something that has recently affected me. And the title of my segment tonight is Getting Bogged Down. And what I mean by that is the very tough decisions that face each of us on a daily basis, sometimes more than once a day, about what to do with your team. It could be a decision as simple as whether you should spend the 4,000 perfect points you have on 4 packs or hold on to it and dream on something bigger. And oftentimes the right answer, at least at this stage in the game, is to dream on something bigger. But it could scale up to be some pretty big decisions, and we'll talk about that some tonight. But really, all of the decisions ranging from things as small as buy packs or not, to which player you should buy, to which position you should prioritize, to which area of your team really needs the most love at that given moment. You know, all of these different decisions that you make have pretty profound impacts on how well your team is going to do. And the order with which you complete those decisions, or the process that you have in place to make a data-driven, or at least good gut feel driven decision on a given question, is going to determine how high your team can rise in the ranks. So what I'm going to walk through tonight, guys, is my process for what I do when I'm faced with a tough decision. And this is going to be a rough outline. When you get into specifics, obviously every decision is different, but we'll walk through kind of how I go about making these tough calls for my team. All right, so how to make tough calls? What's the first thing I do is my homework. So how good is the card really? You know, don't just watch Chris's stream on Thursday. Don't just watch Kidneys in my stream right afterward and go just based on what we say. My advice typically is going to be to let's let the card do some work within the Perfect League main leagues, within some Perfect League tournament leagues. And let's see how good this card is really. What types of stats is this card putting up? And so the best way to do that is to extract the data. But if you don't want to do that, and I know many people don't, just look around. If it's a special edition card that many people were able to complete on a given collection night, or if it's a card that starts getting pulled out in packs, it's going to be in lineups. You're going to be in leagues with it. Check it out. How well is it doing? And be sure to check what type of park it's doing well in. Number 2, understand its place. So it's one thing to be able to identify a card that is good. to identify a card that can help you. But the next layer you need to get to is where are you going to put that card when you get it? Buying a good card is great in theory until you get that card and realize that it creates a problem for you. Maybe you then have a roster logjam. Maybe then you have a non-optimized roster at that team where this card is going to push you to run a righty cheese park, but the rest of your roster is tuned to run a lefty cheese park. So you need to understand the downstream impacts of what you want to do once you've got that card. Where are you going to play it? And that one guy on your 26-man roster that now has lost a roster spot, who's that going to be? And now that that guy's gone, are there any other holes that we need to fill? Is there a general ethos shift of your team that needs to take place because of this new card that you have in place? Third, discern the opportunity cost. So doing this, buying this card, making this decision will prevent me from doing what? Will I not be able to open packs on Thursday when Chris drops new content, when we've got a crazy OP shortstop defensively coming out? Is this going to prevent fixing my rotation, which has been a problem for me? Is this going to not allow me to do some speculation, which can really improve my game economy? Will this stop me from being able to flip cards and get my perfect point stack growing? So understand what it is you're giving up by buying this card, because the answer is typically something. 4, sleep on it. Avoid a rash emotional decision. You know, it's not always something you can do when, say, there's a card that you've been waiting on, you've been wanting to see in the auction house, and you haven't seen it for some time, and it pops up. Hopefully by then you've already done this analysis. Hopefully by then you've already done 1 through 3. And you don't need to sleep on it. You've already done 4 at that point too. And you say, okay, I've made the decision. When this card pops up, I've got the perfect points. I'm ready to do it within the right perfect point price bracket. I'm going to move. And DMP dropping 5 gift subs on the channel. Thanks so much, DMP. Really appreciate it. For all the new guys, welcome to the clubhouse. Glad to have you. And Chuck at the top of the stream renewed his tier 2 sub. 3 straight months now for Chuck. Chuck, thank you for that. So after we've slept on it, let's make a go, no-go call. Let's make a decision. Let's have conviction in our decision. Let's do or do not. There is no try. We will do steps 1 through 4. We'll figure out what the right decision is for our team, and then we go, and we move forward. Because decisions like this, as I mentioned, are going to come up time and time again. I've got 4 examples of decisions like this that come up for players as we're speaking right now. Someone deciding when it's time to move on from the Bob Boone to the Pudge. When to move from the Yogi to the Mauer. When do I cross that bridge from the 99 Maddox to the 100? Do I cross that bridge? You know, all these decisions are tough calls, and all of them need some process behind it. So the decision that I got bogs down with was whether or not to buy Special Edition Wade Boggs. It was a card I knew I wanted. It was a card that, as someone who played lefty cheese a lot, I knew could really help me. And so I was really weighing this decision. And so as I was weighing that decision, I broke out my virtual scale. And on one side of my scale, I had the Do It guy from Star Wars. On the other side, I had Shaq saying, don't do it. So how did I break it down? What was on each side of the scale? So on the left side, there was the fact that Wade Boggs is ideal for a lefty cheese park. High contact, good BABIP guy that can come in there, play third base, get another lefty bat within the lineup, within the stock VR lineup. That's great. That's a great fit. Definitely something telling me to do it. On the Shaq side, there's the cost. At the time, it was $785 to buy it, and roughly around $1 million perfect points to build it. That's a lot of points. I think the most I've ever spent on a card was maybe 500K for Mariano Rivera, the SE. And I didn't build that one. I just bought that one outright. And so this would have been the most expensive card I've ever purchased. And back on the do it side, there's that OBP though. 365 OBP for Wade Boggs. Number 2 in all of Perfect Team. And he's doing that typically playing every day. For the people that have been deploying Wade Boggs, they're not shielding him. For the most part, they're not shielding him VL. They're throwing him out there every day, and he is logging significant OBPs, getting on base. On the don't do it side, it's just a marginal upgrade. So if you look at Boggs' numbers and compare them to Roger Connor's numbers VR, they are identical. 791 OPS for both of them, and that OPS is spread through the average OBP slug very similarly. So if you're comparing really who his bat most closely profiles against, he's a marginal upgrade. Back on the do it side, he's an LVL star. So what do we mean by that? He is a left-handed bat who can hit left-handed pitching well enough as compared to others within the game. He's a number 2 OPS bat LVL within the game, behind only Ty Cobb. And as someone who's running a lefty cheese park, that's a very attractive feature. On the don't do it side is the Hornsby dilemma. I love Rogers Hornsby. He's an incredible right-handed bat. But if I pick up Boggs, and again, this speaks to the prior slide, if I pick up Boggs, that means that Hornsby's got to play second base. I don't love that. Or Hornsby's got to sit. He's got to sit versus right-hand pitching. And I don't love that either. He's one of the better same-side hitters as far as right-handed batters go. So that's a tough dilemma to square. Do I want to take one of my best hitters off the field versus right-handed starting pitching, which is the majority of games? And on the do it side, there's 3 months left in the game cycle. How many more chances am I going to get to win a DLL title? How many chances, if any, am I going to get back into Perfect League and try to win a Perfect League title? We're kind of running out of daylight here. So I'm sitting there staring at a $1 million perfect point stack. Is this not the time to start using it? And then on the don't do it side, there are other upgrade options. I don't own Liam Hendricks in the pen. I don't own face of the franchise, Greg Maddux. So there are other things that I could do with that stack. Is this the right move? And on the final bullet point for do it, I have not made the playoffs in DLL for the last 2 weeks, and I'm extremely salty about it. Salty to the point of rage. As I was eliminated from contention on Saturday, there might have been a little rage. There might have been a little angry fist pump. And I don't want to have to do that angry fist pump again this Saturday. So that was definitely pushing me to do it. And on the don't do it side, is the fear of what's to come. What new content is coming that would be a better use of that million perfect point stack? So I put all of this together. What do you guys think I did? What do you guys think I did? Did I pull the trigger or did I not? What would you have done? It was absolutely a tough call. Kuhn saying no. Phil saying he bought it. Walnut guessing I drank heavily. Stitch going with the buy. And you guys are right. 2 of the 3 of you at least. I went ahead and did it. And I'll tell you the 2 things that pushed me more than anything else. Like, yes, him being a great player. That obviously had a lot to do with it. Him being able to fit into my desired home ballpark had a lot to do with it. But the fact that we are so close to the end of the game cycle and that I'm as salty as can be about the playoffs the last couple weeks in DLL, those were the two things that made me click that button once to say bye and then once to confirm it. As Michael Vick says, hashtag YOLO. All right, so let's get to the interview. But before we do that, just a reminder on the schedule. Thursdays, we do This Week in Perfect Team. Looking forward to doing that with Kidneys a couple days from now. Broadcast the Perfect League on Sunday, roughly around 6 p.m. Eastern. It started a little later than that this last Sunday, and that's all just dependent upon how long it takes those conference finals to wrap up. So just kind of stay tuned, and then we'll definitely go live once the World Series starts. And then Tuesday, a week from today, we'll have another episode of this show, and next week's guest will be announced at the end of the stream. So with that said, let me darken this up, and I will load up. I will load up the video. A little technical difficulty as we're loading this up. Give me just a second to get the audio actually feeding. For episode 9 of Reading Between the Lineups is JMallet, the Lord of Time, the leader of the Greenwich Time Lords. Successful PEL team, two-time champion, one of the members of BFF. How you doing tonight, JMallet?
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, it's kind of fun to be here. As you mentioned, my name is, or my user handle is JMallet. My name is Jason. I'm outside of Boston. A husband, father of 3. Background of work is derivatives, portfolio manager, and trader.
Excellent. And are you also a big baseball fan as well?
Yeah, big baseball fan. I grew up in Minnesota, so Twins fan. First ever game was actually Game 1 of the 1987 ALCS. Gary Gaetti hit 2 home runs off of Doyle Alexander, and it's an interesting start to, I guess, baseball fandom. Having your hometown team win a World Series when you're a kid, but it's quite fun.
I can't get enough Gary Gaetti references. I know he only spent half of one season with the Cubs, but definitely love the Rat. Now, how long have you been playing out of the park or just baseball sim games in general?
Oh, baseball sims in general. I guess everything started really with fantasy football, let's even say, going back to like 1990, where I would play with some of my friends in middle school. Back when the Monday morning sports section was gold. You'd wake up, you'd get that sports section in it, you'd mark all your teams down and see how you did versus your friends. This is before like any of the internet stuff was around, so it was fun. A couple years, later into that, one of my friends, Tony Johnson, said, "Hey, let's do fantasy baseball," and he volunteered to actually keep track of all the stats because that's a daily occurrence instead of just the weekly stuff. And it was fun. It was a great summer. We really enjoyed it, but kept really doing football more. And then, as we got older, moved to college, everything went online anyways. And so it was much easier to track baseball and football. And we've been doing it ever since.
And then what about out of the park?
Yep. So from the fantasy stuff, I transitioned into, let's call it Fox Sports Diamond Legends, which is actually the hat I'm wearing. This was in 1999. I was studying abroad in England, kind of missing a bit of Americana, and found this online and was able to start playing it. It was like let's call it a dead snake draft. So you'd have like with auction price, or not with prices for each player. So you'd set up your snake draft, which players you wanted at their certain prices, and then the sim would sort of auto draft you and everybody else based upon how you ranked them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had a guy that was taken before, it just would like move you to the next one in line and then auto fill you at the end with a bunch of stuff, and you could move your rosters before the season started. It was really fun. I still remember my first team had like Joe DiMaggio playing center field, and we won the title. But this is how I got this hat, actually. But it wasn't cheap. It was like $30 a team or something at the time, and you paid per team instead of being able to have like unlimited teams. And it was just like a three game days simmed at once each day. Mm-hmm. And so you'd have your team make your adjustments for those 3 days, and the next morning you get the next cycle, and then you'd be able to play that. It was quite fun. I did that for a couple of years. Ended up winning like their first, what they call the Hall of Heroes tournament, which was all the top players with the best winning percentages in the game played in like one tournament together. I won that, which was kind of fun. I know eventually the game shut down, and then like the license was bought by actually one of the users. They set it up originally as something called Simnasium, which I think now is played under Imagine Sports. I played that for a couple years, but that was, I started playing in '99 right at the end of my college days, and then I started working in finance and as a portfolio manager and trader, working crazy hours. I first started like on the European desk trading convertible bonds, sort of middle of the night working, and I found that like any free time I had, I'd spend analyzing different financial trades, not baseball stuff, and so that kind of went by the wayside. It was probably a decade or so of not really doing much outside of just regular fantasy sports with my old friends. And then I started playing a little bit more in the fantasy realm. I started playing some Auto New over on Fangraphs, and it actually was like a user in Auto New who said, "Hey, this thing over on OTP, they're doing this perfect team thing. It's really fun. You should get into it." And so I joined that in the PT19 a few weeks into the first cycle. So this might have been, I don't know, late April. I jumped in on that and started playing it, doing my own data gathering by hand at first, not knowing there's a way to download things. So I was building a database row by hand, which took a while and was not, prone to errors and like everything else. But it was fun. Got into that really at the end of that first cycle when Davey released his sheet to the general public for free, saying, "Hey, this is what I was doing. This is what I was looking at." Really sort of was great because I could see all the players at once instead of the ones I was missing. I was able to really do better analysis and, this is who's out there and this is what I really want to do. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really active on the forums or any of these other places yet. A little bit like snooping, but nothing like actually being super contributing. But then PT20 came along. I used that sheet in my own work as a basis for analysis. I'd done a lot of stuff for that earlier game, Fox Sports Diamond 11, sort of running different regressions and finding players' values versus their historical real stats. I was able to derive that high strikeouts and low walks is really good for a pitcher. This is before you had, Boris McCracken releasing his, defensive independent pitch statistics and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I didn't develop my own formulas. I simply just noticed these relationships and was hunting for guys with high strikeouts, low walks, and also hopefully ground balls. So stick a great defense behind them and, do quite well. And it's kind of funny how it might be 2 decades later, but that strategy in sim baseball still seems to work.
Yeah, you're not kidding. We've definitely seen that within this cycle of Perfect Team, and I imagine it wouldn't be too dissimilar to PT19 and PT20 about totally. Having a solid defense, trying to avoid the free passes, and really see where the chips fall. Now, as we look at your contextualized experience of PT19 to 20 to 21, there aren't that many people like you. There aren't that many people that have played all 3 flavors of this game as it was really launched off the ground. So what would you say that you've observed as you've watched them iterate and evolve the game? What can you say about that experience from really beginning to where they stand today?
Well, thinking about that question, I would say the biggest change is outside of a pyramid structure for the Perfect League this season is also just the introduction of tournaments. That was a huge game changer in PT20, and then the ability to do all the collections, like those 2 things, like having changed and being able to like really go after rare cards or special cards available through tournaments or available through missions has completely changed the way the game worked. The PT19 was great. It was really fun, like being able to use cards and build your teams and compete against other people. But PT20 was a light years different game. PT21 is also very different, but definitely closer to PT20 than PT20 was to PT19. And I think, yeah, really being able to play in the tournament, just the total economy change that brought apart into the game, as well as the ability to again hunt for those missions. I know part of talking with the BFF group, their success originally last year was being able to run through the different missions in a profitable way and really build their bank accounts that way. And it still works this year. Like QC's like done exceptionally well, being one of the first players to complete missions and sell cards for the initial high price. But that's, yeah, I'd say those are the biggest changes. I would really say that for me, as a personal note, that like playing PT20 was really fun. And for those that original change, I joined the OL group for a little bit, which is a forums-based group with one of my teams, and was able to play with them for quite a while. It was fun, but it kind of, I don't know, maybe played it for a couple months. It was sort of near the end of their cycle for them, and groups sort of disbanded. People started playing other things. One of my other teams I really like doing, speaking of defense, was just trying to basically in the perfect league of PT20 having the best overall ERA record. I think I have 2 of the top 3 right now. If you go look at that with one of my teams, just pure defense and try to limit the pitching. But it wasn't a team with a huge game economy, so I don't even have like Cy Young on it or like all the really good pitchers. But doing what I can, still running old players, out of position, just all the great shortstops with good range to try to soak up any balls hit in the game. But being able to have a whole season with an ERA sub 2 is quite fun. I would say,
yeah. So clearly, your background and your interests and your competency with regards to building regression models, like all of that has pointed you to be the ideal or one of the ideal buyers and really obsessors of this game. And I think, given how active that we've all seen you be in this game and the success that you've sustained, this game clearly has hooked you in. Is this one of the games that has hooked you in the most, or is this kind of the way that you play anything that you get into? You really go for it all, and then when you're done, you move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I definitely think I try to go for it all in anything I've played, whether that was fantasy sports as a kid or, the early baseball simulations I did, or trading finance. I think the longer you spend at something, the more time you invest, the more you can actually get out of it. The easier it is for you to sort of understand the different nuances and how things move. After PT20 finished up and PT20 was coming along, one of the big things in my mind was like, do I really want to play this? If so, how do I want to get about it? Having done 2 full years on it, what was left? And it was sort of actually the tournament part was a big part of it. It was really fun. I had a very successful silver team, and I was did quite well, but kept getting beat by a lot of other teams. Those that had this like thing after their name that was like -BFF, and part of that, that's a big reason. Like ATD and his War Beagles just kept crushing my team. Like I thought I would be doing well, and then I'd end up losing again, like in the semifinals or finals when I had to face him. And so I reached out to those guys earlier in this year, like right before PT21 was being released, and asked to join. Thought about it, and they were great. Like very welcoming right away. Open ideas sharing. Talking about different tactics in the tournaments, different tips for roster construction, and then. But of course, for PT21, nobody knew what it was going to be. How is this game going to be different than before? And sort of, I went from there. So I was able to join there. That was sort of like the next challenge. BFF is a group of people who are all free to play with extra restrictions. I know QC went on this in his interview and did a very good job of explaining what it is. But just as a quick recap, initially you can't sell any golds or diamonds or better, or perfects, historic cards that you pack. Anything live you can sell. And then after the All-Star break, they opened up selling any historic golds, but still anything that you pack that's a historic diamond is essentially BFF locked in your roster, and you can't actually monetize that. And same thing with any tournament wins that are diamonds or perfect. You can't actually sell those. So at one point, a couple months ago, I think I went through it all. At the time, like the L7 value of locked BFF cards that were not otherwise locked in missions that were used for me was just over 1 million perfect points, basically just sitting there dead. I could quick sell them for $4,000 each, but holding on to them in the case that like a different mission comes along that requires those cards where I could actually lock them and get something that's playable. But it's fun. It was a bigger challenge. It kind of was something more interesting to do. And this was really early on, thinking it would be more like PT20, where you get your group together, you play together. And the idea of ever playing in like the top perfect league was just a pipe dream. Like the idea of playing against all the whales and their teams, being able to just buy whatever cards you want, never really thought it was possible. I think it was QC was the first one to even think about, hey, if we really have a good run here, if I can make it there on some luck winning a Diamond League, because we thought we would get the BFF group up to Diamond, sneaks into perfect league, and then you get in the right division, so you have a shot at making the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, it is, as we've seen very recently, any team can win regardless of how active or inactive you are at managing your squad. So how the dice roll really determines more than people might want to think.
Is that an allusion to a series that played out a few short hours ago?
It might be. It might be. So it's quite fun to see that, and actually like have that proven that it can happen, that it is, as much as you want to think, like at least I want to think, that actively managing your squad gives you an advantage, and I think it does. It doesn't give you an automatic win against teams that aren't managing. I mean, it just tilts the scale slightly in your favor. So when a team can still roll high for 4 or 5 games against you and do that again and do that again, and while they have a lower chance than anybody else, they still have a chance, and it's proven tonight.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lot there. You mentioned BFF. You mentioned tournaments. I think tournaments are probably a great spot to start in. And as anyone who has tried to compete with you knows, you're definitely one of the more prepared owners. One of the owners that really has an idea of what they want to do. And this interview really is no exception, because you are my first interviewee that has brought content, brought slides, brought infographics that they want to share with the audience as we contextualize the argument or the discussion here today. So we'll jump right into that and really talk about your journey through building tournament teams, through kind of rationalizing which direction you want to go. I'm showing up your first slide that you have here with some high level bullet points here, as well as you pontificating whether you want to go silver or gold tourney if the prices weren't too high. Why don't you walk us through really your process there and what we're looking at here? Yeah,
so tournaments have been, one of the main drivers of why the Time Lords are where they are. Originally, when the game launched, there was the ability to flip silvers, which I know has been talked about before. So live silver flipping was a huge driver the first, month or so of the cycle. And I remember like early on in March when the game just launched, sitting here in like this chair, and I play on a laptop, so I play anywhere, but sitting here on some days, my kids are asleep and I'm out here basically grinding the live silver market to try to clip, a few hundred perfect points per transaction and sort of build up the squad that way. And the other part has been tournaments, and the ability to build a successful squad that essentially pays for itself and then more has been a huge reason for the Time Lords to be where they are. It's definitely behind that initial, grinding of the silvers and other auction house based economy stuff. The next biggest driver by far. I really just tried to decide on what to do. Part of this was, my success in PT20 was in silvers, like a really good successful silver squad that was able to make good returns. And when this one came out, the BFF community was debating whether or not, we should do silvers and golds, and sort of wanted to figure out what we could do. So yeah, I guess, when my early comment here looks like, I think from the 23rd of March, it's, I guess building a solid silver or gold tourney team could be interesting if the prices are not too high, thinking about good ways to invest. And yeah, that's sort of how it started. And then the decision was, I think in the next slide, I was talking about, like, I think we grabbed a clip from an early BFF conversation of silver versus gold, when people were talking about where to go. Then you can see a few of the regular BFF characters in here. And it was really interesting how at the end, like, I made a comment of how I enjoyed silver. There are so many different ways to construct a team in the silver tournaments in PT20. Whereas the gold teams were just kind of bog standard. They had the right players, the best ones at each position. Everybody's running similar stuff out there. And so I was actually thinking of maybe going silver initially in this cycle as well, but went back to gold mainly because so many of the BFFs were trying to build silver teams and getting my teeth kicked in by them in PT20. I was thinking, these guys know a lot more than I do about this stuff. Maybe I can try to find an edge in the gold and just be sort of having a little, first mover advantage into that. Having built up a good bankroll from trading live silvers, I went into the gold market to buy the right players to put a team together. And, as the next slide shows, the early gold stuff, here we are in early April. And I guess I dropped, 50K points in non-live gold and silvers. It was stacked, but, I was still also trying to build my main squad. I was running, as everybody was, all those live SCs that you win, plus other stuff you get from it. It was kind of funny, but yeah. And I know like JD asked a question that I replied to in there. How is the competition level for gold? And it was so early on, I actually dug around like who else is playing it. It was really just like, how do I put anybody together to build this team to make it somewhat competitive? And then it started doing really well those first couple of days. Like it was out there really racking it up. The daily gold, the 64 team really wasn't filling because there just weren't many people playing golds at that time. It was an expensive thing to do. So you basically had to be either really successful make some bankroll to put into the golds, or you were a whale, and whales were, I think consistently would just buy the best cards and play open. So this gold like area was just sort of an open land that nobody was really doing. The best of threes were going. The do or dies were of course going. Everybody loves entering those quick tournaments. And yeah, so had a pretty good start in that.
So let's talk for a minute about the stakes of the decision. Silver versus gold wasn't some small decision to be taken flippantly, but rather at this stage of the game cycle, one, supply of these cards were low, and two, like your game economy is nowhere near humming yet. You've yet to capitalize on any speculation windfalls, and so you're really making a very big decision here. And once you've made that decision, it's kind of point of no return unless you want to start over and then take the vig out of what you've already put into it as you reflip everything. So this was a transformative decision, and had you gone the other way, there's no saying that you couldn't have gotten to the same place you got to, but it was just kind of a big moment and really kind of steered your team from where they were to where they went.
100% agree. 100% agree. I'm very pleased I went with gold. Really good success early on. Winning packs, winning tournaments of all varieties in the gold, just because it wasn't competitive initially. Like there wasn't as many people into it. And I think people were still running a lot of live teams against me and then sort of that stuff. Well, I was one of the first ones to have really good, historic players at the right positions. Like I remember Deacon White, as catcher early on, getting him in there and like really putting together the right squad at the right time. But yeah, and as you were saying, being able to have that decision really build the team from it. Like I think the next one I bring up was my first really big pull from one of those packs in this cycle. When one of them I ended up pulling a Roger Connor.
Wow. Pulling a Roger Connor early game cycle? Are you kidding me? A card that is still meta to today? That's incredible.
And it was funny how when it happened, I think it was JDA who was like, oh, that's a great card. He'll probably still be able to be played like months from now as like the best one. Like it's just the way this, the card lined up with the amazing avoid K, good contact, and like everything. I was like, really that far? Like you think it's a change? And here we are now, still being played as first base, like the number one versus righty first baseman still that people are running out there. Unless you're trying to run Boggs at first with Brett at third or something like that. But that really changed it when that happened. It was really fun. It was really, really fun.
I'm curious, Jason, did you keep track of your individual game win rates in that early gold or your Pythagorean win expectancy?
So I did keep track of all of my wins. I did not download the data on a tournament basis for all the players and like based upon who you had, like what the right squad was. I was doing that a little bit to understand what it was, but I wasn't tracking on that basis just because it took so long, especially for like best of 3 tournaments and all those. I was just simply scrolling through the list. I was spamming, especially gold best of 3s a lot. And sort of thinking about how I was doing. I had a huge spreadsheet with, hundreds of tournaments entered and seeing how I was doing. I would track overall win rate, my rolling 20 game win rates, to see like, if a change had been made, if the meta had shifted. It was a good way to track and see if like I was starting to fall off or what was going on. But those really early ones, I think I have a little graph there of just showing how successful this squad was. I mean, these are the first, looks like tournament 79 to the early 90s that were run on this. And they were just like more winners in places than there are anything else. It just kept winning everything. I mean, there's only 750 points at a time, but it was still just really good success.
And then for BFF and your rule structure, perfect points are actually more valuable than packs, right?
They are, yes, because you can then use them for whatever you want. Because the packs, again, if you pull those higher cards, you're kind of stuck with them. But like, I still went for packs a lot because it was still really fun to acquire all the good cards. And after pulling Connor, and within actually another couple of weeks, pulling a DiMaggio, 100 DiMaggio, and then also pulling Josh Gibson right away. So I had 3 big cards on the squad. At the time, I think DiMaggio and Gibson were trading at like 300K each. But of course, I couldn't sell them because they were BFF locked. So I couldn't actually continue. I mean, other BFF players had a big pull early on, and some of them dropped out so they could sell that card and then try to build their squad from that way.
Sure.
But yeah, I kept with it. I figured, I'm here for the journey to see what it's like. And so we kept them on the team and went from there. And it was really fun. Having like those really important pieces early on also helped the economy, and that I didn't have to spend those perfect points on those positions. I had really pulled like one of the best cards you could use for it. And so I was able to just put that money to better work on other pieces for the main team. And of course, kept spending on the gold team. And at some points, like I was tracking it, I'd spent, over 100 or nearly 100,000, like within the first week of April on that team, bringing it up. And then quickly within, it looks like another few days later, my spend had gone, to 120K plus in the gold squad. I just kept pouring money in the gold team to try to make it as dominant as possible to win more packs and more points from the tournaments.
And I think this is important for players to understand as we head towards PT22 and even people who are struggling with game economy here still in PT21. Like, yes, it is frustrating to struggle in your main league. Yes, when you don't see yourself moving up the totem pole, that can be disappointing. But at the foundation of where and how you're going to get to where you want to, there needs to be a game economy engine fueling you to get there. So if a 10,000 perfect point player can maybe help you win your Stone League, or you can put that all into your bronze tournament team or silver tournament team or whatever, and that's going to become something that's going to fuel you from a perfect point generation perspective way more than that simple one-time hit of maybe winning that Stone League, where then you're going to end up in a higher league, which is going to yield less perfect point generation in the main league anyway. So it's really self-defeating to prioritize those early teams up until you have some semblance of a game economy built around a tournament practice.
Totally agree. Yeah, having that consistent point generation engine. I mean, this is, it's not the current cycle where you can complete the live missions while using only like bronze and some silver cards and then scale your team up with crazy eye and power and just try to generate as many points as possible from those early leagues so you can really shoot your way up. I mean, each league, I think we were doing well. Like some leagues, we were still getting like 20 to 50,000 in those early leagues just by dominating some of the other teams. You'd get those high point rewards for some of those pounding 3,000s or crossing the plate 3,000s, or every now and then you get a 20-game winner when SE Maddox in 99, would get 20 straight victories without a loss during a season, and you get that 7,000. It was quite fun. But yeah, no, I mean, having consistent generation and the decision to just plow money into the team to make it as dominant as you can, just to every time you enter, you want the highest percentage chance you can to return some points or packs.
And I see a graphic here of you breaking down the gold lineup and really what you paid to get it. And it looks like it was just over 114,000 perfect points. Well,
so,
even more than that.
A lot of those, some of them were packs, some of them were, a lot of them were purchases, and then one of them was, acquiring all the pieces to get the early Edgar card for that reward, and that was funny. I think I put down a lot. They didn't want to calculate at the time because there's so many different parts. But it ended up being, I think it was over 30,000 basically for all the different components to build that. And that card I think trades for a few thousand now at best. But he was the best first baseman for a long while in gold, and really dominated that early sort of game before everything caught up and people really switched to some guy named some Chicago first baseman, Grace, I think, or something. But yeah, it was big fan. It was really fun. It was really fun being able to push through in the gold and really have a good stranglehold on that competition for that sort of early cycle. And it really, like, between the silver flipping and the gold tournaments, boosted the economy to the point where the Time Lords are able to be in a good position for continued success in game economy. You know, trading in the auction house, being able to invest early on. Yeah, I mean, we can jump one more. Like, let's do a little fast forward here. I think the next slide is kind of fun because you answer, like, the biggest tournament win we've had all year by far was winning the weekly Ultra Cap and winning a Noodles Han. That occurred during my second week in Perfect League and this current stretch of what will now be 10 seasons starting next week. It happened, funnily enough, like early morning on my daughter's birthday. So it was kind of fun to actually, like, have the biggest win happen on her day. Of course, she's sound asleep, and it was quite fun to have that. And then that same season, we ended up winning perfectly, in a big part because of Han doing okay in the finals, even though he had a little poor earlier on in the playoffs. And once again, not this week they just wrapped up, but the one before when we won our second title, Han played amazingly well. I mean, without his performances, the team wouldn't know. Or, I mean, it's been the number one biggest win for the team, being able to put together, just having another dominant lefty when you play in I think you guys call it a lefty cheese park.
Do you guys not? Does BFF not call that a lefty cheese park?
Well, we do now because that's what everybody else calls it. But we just were calling it, a park that, was lean, heavy lefty versus a righty park. We didn't just use cheese, but the idea of doing that and then managing your teams, pitching accordingly, and getting your lineup set, to benefit you as much as possible in said park. Is really fun.
As I look at this tournament, it looks like it was quite the grueling go that you had there. I see you've got 4 7-game series.
Yep.
And then your quarterfinals are against T-Chuck, who is one of the best gold tournament players out there. So
I mean, he knocked me out in this latest round. Like, I thought I still had a decent squad of gold. Like, since getting knocked out by Chuck in the first qualifier for this winter cycle, the team has won daily gold a couple times, and still raking in packs like crazy. But, anything can happen in one tournament. Best of 7, we've seen, any team can win. But, yeah, that night was definitely the Time Lords night. And it was fun to see. I mean, you look at that, and a lot of the players that are in there, too, are big-time players in the tournament market. Pack Freaks are in there.
Yep.
M-Dub's in there. E-Chuck, Yeah, so it was fun, taking down these guys. But at the same point, so many 7-game series. I just, like, the 7th game came in, and you don't know what to expect. And then you see, of course, it flashes up that you've won as opposed to, you didn't win, which is, always the worry on the 7-game when you don't know which way it's going to flip. Yeah, it was a great moment. It was really fun.
Who are the 3 tournament players in gold that you least want to see matched up with you in a tournament?
Oh, in gold, I don't even know, because I'll be honest, I don't look at individual tournaments in gold. Like, when I won daily gold, it just was on autopilot. Like, I don't even look. Like, I tried in the qualifier, but normally, like, if it's running golds, I don't bother any type of microing. I really only look at stuff for, like, the cap tournaments and the bigger tournaments where you can win big cards.
Sure.
Then I will pay much more attention. So I can't really speak to gold, but if I would speak to tournaments in general, I think the best tournament player right now is ATD by far. He has all the right pieces for all the different era tournaments and has just been cleaning everyone's clock across the board and winning, like, all the good prizes over the last month or so. Really just, he was one of the reasons to join BFF in the first place was his War Beagle stomping me in silver back in PT20, and he's just continued that. I'd say that his ability to consistently do that is great. HDA, or High Desert Ace, also very consistent, very top tournament player across all the interesting tournaments for good rewards. And then another guy who I keep matching up against and trading, wins and losses with is actually Doc Fury. I mean, his teams consistently are in all the interesting tournaments as well and very successful. So I would put those 3 as the people I would least really want to line up against in these tournaments. I can't really speak to gold, but I'd have to put T-Check up there because he knocked me out. But I don't really know like individual players since I'm not tracking like you do with your bronze, like who the best players are, who's got the right teams. I just don't download the data for gold for that anymore. I downloaded it to try to see who did well, and like what the meta looks like. But as long as I see the stats and like my team keeps winning at the rate I expect, I'm not going to spend the time diving into which teams are best, which teams have the right players, what does this really look like. I'd rather just focus my time with my family or other things. If I'm gonna play it in games, I spend it on trying to build a better team for Perfect League.
I hear you, and I'm glad you brought up bronze because you and I had a chance meeting a few short weeks ago in the PTCS qualifier, where my team tuned over the course of dozens of hours and countless analysis of understanding not only the statistics generated within bronze, but the teams that are successful. I don't know that there was anyone more prepared for that PTCS tournament than me. And then you, who, and I quote, put together a team in 10 minutes right before the start of that tournament. And you took the tournament, or you took the series from me in 7 games. It was the series before you qualified. So whoever won that game between you and I would have qualified for the final. And your 10-minute team trumped my many hours team. And you can ask me if I'm salty about it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed actually the deep dive you did on Thursday through the bronze meta. I mean, that must have been really cathartic to just have to go through every player with your stats, how it looked, how they played, who the best options were, from what you saw, and then see Kidney suggestions as well, which were very similar, but obviously introducing some other options that were more, I would almost say, model based than stats based, because I think the one thing at least I noticed with gold was the players that showed up doing well, either they did because they were like a Tony Gwynn who hits well both ways, or players that were everybody really just platoon one way with, and so they shot up there. But I think especially in the tournament side, having that historical data is great, but you really have to also look at the model of like what guys work well together. I mean, the thing about building a tournament team isn't just putting the best players out there. It's putting the best team together that you can, where the defense and the pitching line up right, where the hitters line up with each other. So you're either blasting the ball and walking for home runs, or you're putting guys on base and stealing and moving guys forward. It's really a team construction issue. And that to me is maybe a little bit of the art in the tournaments that is why some of those super successful players do what they do, because those teams just tend to do quite well when they're thought through. And I think, it was fun. I mean, like I said, it was like a 10-minute team. I just looked at some of the old meta that I had for bronze and looked at kind of like a couple of the recent tournaments I'd entered and who did well in those, and just sort of, I need those guys. And it was really funny too, because I actually didn't have a lot of players on my alt team. So I was like, the Newton Dragons is the team that I did really well in silvers with. And it was the team that I did first in PT21, but not fully knowing the BFF rules since I had started it already. And not declared as my BFF team. I had to start another team as my BFF team, which is why the Time Lords ended up being the BFF team. But the Dragons, they weren't able to actually get all the players I wanted off the auction house like that morning because, of course, everybody was grabbing cards for the tournament team. So I had to make do with a few replacements. But it's funny, like the team did really well. Earlier this week, there was one day where they finished second in both the daily early bronze as well as the daily bronze. So, which was the exact same team that faced you, except that I brought in Lava instead of Surhoff at catching. But otherwise, the exact same team. And so maybe that team was a better build than I actually, gave it initial credit for, because it placed second again, I think today or yesterday in the early bronze as well. So it's been performing at a pretty high clip. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in a week after a few more adjustments are made.
Yeah, spam some Bow 7 with that, and I'll give you some Pythagorean data and some win-loss data.
Yeah, that'll be fun. But no, I mean, it was. I know I pinged you when it was happening that we're here, and I think at one point I was up 3-1, and you took the next 2 games, and I was like, oh, that's all she wrote. His team finally is clicking. I mean, I looked at what you had. You had what looked like all the optimal players at every possible position, and looked great. But again, like we saw earlier today, anything can happen with any team against another. So
sure can.
Yeah. So especially when all the parts are the same. So and bronze is a huge huge volatility. It's not anything can happen with those lower level teams. Anybody can beat another one. It's really hard, I think, to drive bronze success consistently the way it would be to drive open success or even gold success.
Yeah, one of the reasons I had asked the earlier question about your observed win rates, and by win rates I mean individual game win rates, if you had that, was because I track that religiously in bronze, and the level itself is just so flat in terms of everyone being able to get every player, and those teams are constantly evolving and constantly improving. And so at this point in time, no one can keep their win rate over 600. So like the ceiling that one can achieve in bronze is right around 580, 585, 590 if you're doing really well. And I'm just curious because I've never spent the time to investigate, like, is gold a completely new world where 650 is a possibility, 640 can be done? I have no idea until I go and do the same exercise there.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have anywhere between 80 and 100 gold tournaments that I've pulled in for the 32 teamers. So I have a good bit of data. I guess I could try to look at that, but I never looked at it, on an individual win basis. It was really just how well the teams performed actually getting rewards, either packs or and I think I did some for best of three just to see how many point generation you make and like expected point generation per tournament entered and how well one team outperforms another on that. But the best of three stuff is all historical data anyway, so that's not as germane to this conversation. But yeah, maybe I'll take a look at that regular gold data and just to see. But I would expect it's probably a little bit higher because I think there are a lot of poor gold squads that people roll out because they don't have all the top cards like they do for bronze.
Right. Yeah, so enough about tourneys. Here you are, two-time Perfect League champion, and we just keep droning on and on about tourneys, which absolutely are pivotal to your and my story of how we were able to build up teams able to compete in Perfect League. But let's actually talk about perfect team success. So, from that very first DLL and BFF crossover, we could tell that the Time Lords were a team to be reckoned with. And now you've gone, I believe, 9 straight weeks and counting. Is that accurate in Perfect League?
That's right, yeah. So this was the 9th straight. Was this the night where next week? I think next week's the 10th week in a row will be. Yeah, I think that's right. I joined this recent run in 48, and next week is 57. So yeah, that's 10 in a row, which I think ties the Colored Alliance for the longest consecutive streak, if I'm remembering right, unless somebody had a longer one earlier on that I don't have data from because they haven't been back recently.
Yeah, it's definitely very notable, and I think that those long streaks are even more impressive when done in a post-face of the franchise world where there's really been a drastic leveling of the playing field. So what has been, to you, the biggest key to your sustained success and sustained existence, avoiding and fighting off that relegation Puma?
The relegation Puma, yeah. I would definitely say it's trying to maximize my advantage in every single batter versus pitcher matchup. That would be the number one thing. Why I'm currently able to be successful there. I mean, my journey to Perfect League was, like you said, it was really fun. Those early matchups against DLL were great because, looking at all those amazing teams with really smart managers, winning against each other, and API and its forceful ferns like back in the day was just, like looking at the way that was constructed and consistently like putting out the right players at the right positions and having good success with it. And really learning how to, I learned a lot from his teams, like early on. It's really funny. Like we've gone back and forth in a few chats, just like we've, read each other's teams and like picked up just how they've like operated, like what ways to do with different stuff. And now both have had recent success. I think he's like the second longest current run manager in Perfect, winning a title of his own, which is great. But it was fun. Like I still really enjoy those matchups. And I went back earlier today and looked at my history. And the last time the Time Lords did not make a playoff was the most recent DLL BFF matchup that existed. I think it was 2038. And I didn't make the playoffs that year. After that was a lot more DLLs or a lot more success in Diamond. It was kind of like right when Face of the Franchise was coming out and just getting those right cards. So the reason they were even in position, the Time Lords, to be able to participate in this type of a thing was the earlier on, Team of the Decade cycle when those were being released and speculating on those. I mean, that's really what has been the number one economy changer for the team, was every couple of weeks getting another 1 to 2 million perfect points in. And then knowing what the next cycle would be like and just constantly sweeping in all the potential cards, golds, and that you could then flip, and even diamonds, because the BFF rules, another thing I don't think I mentioned, was that you had to hold on to a gold plus card for a week before you could resell it. So you can only flip silvers and below, which is another reason why I focus on live silver flipping, because you could actually flip those, whereas anything longer was really an investment hold. But it worked out perfectly for Face of the Franchise, or not Face of the Franchise, for the Team of the Decade. So you could actually buy them, hold on for your week cycle, and then when the next release came out, you're buying golds at 2,000, selling them at 10,000. It was great. And you just pour your points into it, and then roll that book over for the next part, the next part, the next part, and then at the end you had all the top cards and a huge amount of points sitting there. And just once then everybody, I think, was pretty quick to notice that all the diamonds would be needed, and so everyone was just bidding diamonds up. Anytime you got lucky and you found a diamond for less than 10,000, you just bought it regardless of who it was, because you would need it or then be able to sell it later. And that was the thing, was cycling that money through and then getting that amount of cash into it to be able to complete Face of the Franchise and be able to have the Cobb, be able to have the Pedro and all the other toppers when those finally hit. And then it was 2, 3, 4 weeks of sitting in Diamond with a very good squad, consistently posting like the best record in the BFF league, but just always failing in the playoffs. I mean, winning a Diamond League is so difficult. So you have to be one of those teams in it, and it's just like it's a crapshoot every time. You're against other very good squads, and anything can happen in the playoffs. Again, like we've seen this week, anything can happen in the playoffs, and so you're not guaranteed a spot back up in a perfect. I was able to sneak up there one time early on. I managed an 82-80 record and got knocked out, and then it was a long break until being able to make it back in, and I got lucky, finally won one, and then it's been a fun ride ever since. But it's having all the right pieces from like a hitting standpoint. I don't think my team. I think somebody asked in the Discord earlier how much my team has changed, and I think I added Tris from like a position player standpoint. The second week I was in Perfect League, this 10-run cycle where we actually won that week. That was the biggest change, just bringing him in. But otherwise, it's been the exact same players. Like, it's still the Face of the Franchise ones, and running Pop Lloyd at short, and still having Roger Connor ever since April 5th as a first baseman. It's been a fun cycle. But yeah, and I think that's also part of the reason why it's done so well. It's because if the meta had changed a lot recently with other top position players, I don't know if we could keep up there. The fact it has been consistent with this formula, playing in a lefty park, having the right pieces in there, managing the right matchups, that's what's really been able to drive the success. Once the Hall of Fame cards come out in January, I'm sure it's all going to be down to people who rip the packs to get those good cards, or people who built up the really big bankrolls. I don't think we're going to compete at that point. It's going to be very difficult. But for now, enjoying the run as it happens, and looking forward to another shot next week at trying to outrun the Puma.
So I've got a graphic up on the screen right now. It's one that you provided to me. It's Perfect League 2051 to 2056, the last 5 years, and favorable matchups by team. Why don't you walk the viewer through what it is we're looking at here with all of these blue and orange dots?
Great. So this is the last 6 years of data from the Perfect League with the favorable batting matchups. So when you have your batter's handedness the opposite of the pitchers on the y-axis, and then the favorable pitching matchups where you have your pitcher's arm the same as the batter's down there. And so looking at the different teams, so this would be 6 data, so 240 teams, all scattered across there of how they match up between them. And then I put the Time Lords in orange. The biggest thing to note is how far to the right they are on the pitching matchups. They really have outperformed handedness, and a lot of that is down to early on using pseudo, and then running the BF.9, and then continue that where you're able to start a player, and then have, unless people are actively managing, triggers the opposite-handed lineup they want to put out there, and so then you're lined up correctly for your pitchers against them. And when you're running, your pitcher's arm 60% of the time, when the league average I think is 41.9. It's a pretty big advantage to have that be able to be pulled out there. I think the next graph I showed was just on the pitching matchup stuff, which I think we had talked about early on. I think you shot me a graph now. I don't know, whatever it was. It was before you won your title about how the Time Lords had outperformed other teams on this pitching handedness against the league. And I think one of them you sent, it was like there was a larger gap between the Time Lords and the second place team than there was between the second place and the 40th team or something. Which was just funny. Like that was my intent from the beginning, was to get those matchups, but I didn't realize it had been that successful versus the league. And so I actually started digging more into it at that time and seeing what was going on. And this next graph shows just looking at win percentage of these teams versus the favorable pitching matchup. And it's not hugely correlated. I mean, in general, the teams that are really doing a good job, the 50% plus, are putting very good teams out there. You can see they're all winning 50% plus of their games. So it does make a difference on that upper end, but in general, it's pretty scattered. The correlation is obviously positive still, and a 0.3 correlation is not nothing. It's pretty interesting. And then the other component of it is, of course, the hitting matchups or the batting matchups. And you can look at the next chart there, which shows win percentage against your favorable batting matchups, which has a slightly higher correlation than just the pitching ones, which is interesting. And the Time Lords do okay, but do not massively overperform in this versus other teams. I mean, there are teams, I mean, in general, if you're running just a lot of
same side hitters.
You can run a lot of lefties and do okay in this, just because so many people have the top right-handed pitchers. But it does, it's a good correlation of about 37%, which is pretty interesting. But where the rubber meets the road is the next one, and that's looking at the combination of adding both your pitching favorable handedness matchups and your batting ones together. And that's when you get much more of a linear relationship. A correlation of almost 45% is something you can actually start working with. And again, the Time Lords there are in orange on the far right. We haven't put up the best win season, but it's been consistent. That one really high dot at nearly 65% was Pidge's recent season, where he did a great job of microing his team and also came away with a ton of wins. But yeah, that to me has been the biggest success of the Time Lords, has been able to put the team in favorable matchups as much as possible. And yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I think that's really been the key driver, having the right cards, which was provided by good game economy and tournaments, and then trying to put the right team out versus the opposing team's pitcher, and try to put the right pitcher out against the opposing team's lineup that you want. It's really fun playing against guys who are active managers, because everyone tries to run like an L7 against you, and then you try to think about, well, what are they going to try to run against me, and is there any way to counter that? Or like when Whale King was up, would just run the same team versus right versus left, and see how do I optimize my team versus what he's going to throw out without being super active managing. It's really interesting. But those sort of individual game matchups, it's kind of the closest thing you can really get in a simulation to being a baseball manager right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the how a bit. So we know that the traditional pseudo was uprooted, and that had an impact on everyone who was partaking in it. So now, what is the way that you leverage what is still in the game? Is it the BF9, which by BF9 we mean setting your starter at a batter faced maximum of 9, so that once they face that 9th hitter, the pitcher will pull them out before the 10th? Or is there some other way that you're using?
So I was doing BF9. So when they first removed it, I tried BF9 for a while, and then you try dialing it back from there and trying to see where it triggers. And really, it does seem like that 9 is the magic one going through the order once to have it consistently have that pitcher treated as a starter. If you go lower than that, it will trigger them as an opener, and then it will designate your long reliever as a follower, and then put the batting lineup accordingly. And so a lot of teams now, which is interesting, have been running like a BF 5 or 6 with a designated follower. But when that follower has already pitched, it's not able to actually use them, but it still is able to trigger a lineup against them of the right-handedness. And so you end up getting your then middle relievers coming in against the right-handed pitchers. I tried that, but never really got it to work effectively for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I just now set my starters the way I used to for old pseudo, but I don't set the BF limit with like a regular tag and then set a long reliever. I just run an opener essentially, which I think is a great thing for baseball in the future. I designate a guy to start the game. I pick how many batters I might want them to face, and then it gets turned over to the pen. I don't designate long relievers to try to have a trigger as a follower. I just set up guys as middle relief or specialists. The AI just decides, what the best player is to use. And I think it's something that makes a lot of sense going forward in real baseball even. So like if you have a team like the Rays who like to bring out a bunch of left-handed batters versus a righty, it doesn't work when you have aces as much, but if these teams are really going to be as big as they are and you're running 14-man staff, you can put out a couple players to start every other game essentially for an inning, and then have a righty and a lefty ready to go based upon the matchup of the opposing lineup, and then just bring out the right pitcher. And that's kind of what I do. I just try to have it set up so it can go out there and throw the right arm against the lineup that's going to be potentially faced, and goes from there.
So you're putting a lot of trust within the AI to honor your intentions to match-handedness and to navigate that game, and oftentimes navigate a vast majority of that game. Now, in doing so, the risk or the downside would be that you're pitching a lot of arms. And when you're pitching a lot of arms, you are going into future games or the games to come to follow that with very few rested arms. So how has that impacted your roster management?
Yeah, so the Time Lords suffer from a really bad case of Dodgeritis, where they end up using way more pitchers than you would otherwise think. This theory started back earlier on in the cycle during some of the BFF DLL matchups, where I was trying to maximize my advantage against other players, and using the original pseudo, and just bringing in guys from the pen as much as possible. I remember my first time up in the Perfect League, I was just diving down to any arms I could get at some points, trying to put a team that had really no business competing in Perfect League, and it was clear, but still managing a winning record against some dominant teams. By some games I'm bringing in Rick Aguilera, and it was fun. Jeff Reardon, the old Twins closers, it was fun just to bring him in for a game or two, just so there'd be an arm that was fully rested, as opposed to a guy who was completely gassed. And that continued. And once that was over, during my face of the franchise selections, I was trying to always lock the top pitchers for every team. So that really was like the one change in my focus, was to always have the good pitchers. So I would lock those as much as possible, to then have them available to be brought in this way by pitcher rotation. And it's made a huge difference. Like if a guy's tired, you just cycle the next one in. I mean, there are drop-offs. Like I never bench Pedro or Maddox or Seaver or, Big Train or Hoffman or things of that nature. But there are, of my normal 12 pitching slots, 3 or 4 of them I'm completely happy to just cycle into the best available card. And now that with the new SC Carlton and even a new Hal, like that's 2 more guys to go with Price is like a great versus lefty specialist. So now those are just like, if any of those guys are tired, just bring the next one in.
Right.
It's just that pitcher rotation, just keeping your arms fresh. Like a pitcher at 100% performs better than a pitcher even at 80 for that game. There's degradation. It drops off much further or much faster as you go down. But even 100 versus 80, you'd rather have a slightly worse pitcher at 100 than a better one at 80 for that next matchup in the game. So yeah, just trying to keep the arms fresh, keep the rotating going. And I think now there are usually in the upper 30s different pitchers that pitch for the Time Lords over a course of a season, just due to the rotation.
So how close are you, Jason, to sim management, where every 30 minutes you are checking what's the rest situation for your pen and making a game call for how many batters you want that next scheduled starter to go?
I did that for a few weeks. Very intense management. I think up in when I won the first title, I was doing that those couple of weeks in the PL. So I know when I was in Diamond, I definitely was not doing it. I did it 1 week just to test it out to see what it would go like, and I was like, this is crazy. There's way too much time invested. And so I stopped doing it. But then when I made Perfect League, I wanted to see, does this strategy work at the highest level? And it did. Did okay the first week, made the playoffs. And the second week we won it. And I was like, wow, this is great, but it just takes way too much time. So I dialed it way back. I'd say now I will check in the morning for what's upcoming, and if I can set a couple things and have a game plan, that's great. And if I'm free, I trade financial stuff from home on my laptop, so I'm here anyways. So being able to cycle over to the game for 30 seconds and switch a picture in and out, it doesn't take too much effort.
Sure.
I'd say there's more time lost waiting for the game to load between each sim than there was time spent dealing with the game itself.
Sure.
It's funny, like even when I was doing the face of the franchise specking, like looking at the auction house and stuff, people in BFF were like, wow, you must be spending so much time doing this. Like, no, you check it once every hour. You send your few scripts through. If somebody's there, you buy them, then you move on the rest of your life. Similar to managing the game now. I'm definitely more active managing during the work hours during the week than I am on the weekends. Just out with family, doing things, or even at night during dinners and stuff. But then, I'll check again at the end of the day. I might actively manage the last few games of the sim or the few games of the day cycle because it's late at night and everyone's asleep, and I'm able to just sort of log in there and take a look at what's going on and do some prep for the next day's work while also being able to cycle through and look at what games are coming up and move the pictures accordingly. I don't use the L7s as much. Sometimes I want to do that against like the top players that are active managers themselves, like API. I know it's always fun to go up against him because he's always going to bring something interesting out. But otherwise I just try to set what I think is going to be the right matchup for the next series or two series and have my pitchers lined up in the right way. Or even if I don't actively manage, I might go in there and just like I flip a pitcher here or there and expecting it to happen. Playoffs you try. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it can be a grind, and it was a grind those first few times. And yeah, I don't think anybody can do that every week consistently.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your PEL burnout level at right now?
I don't know. Winning last week definitely alleviated some of it. It's just quite fun again. I wasn't sure if winning another title was something that I was really wanting to do, but the chips fell really well and got lucky, and it was really fun to do. So I'd say it's a little bit lower, but I'm definitely not spending nearly as much time looking at the auction house, looking ways to grind economy, looking ways to put this team out there as the most optimal lineups every week, every matchup. But, we have a bronze team in the PTCS Winter Finals coming up next week, so that's going to be fun. But on the Perfect League team, on the Time Lords, it's going to be, hopefully we outrace the Puma. But if we get caught, I'm also not going to be super stressed by it. I don't have that view of, I need to get a third title to tie Mac Jacks. Like, I'm not in that mindset. It's fun if it happens, great. But it's been a fun cycle. It's been fun. We've had great success, and if we have more, cool. If we end up getting caught next week and go down and don't even ever make it up again, so be it. But it's fun, yeah. So I'd say there's definitely some burnout because the drive isn't there the way it was. But at the same point in time, it's still a fun distraction. It's a great hobby. It's a fun sim game. You get to play with interesting data sets. It's baseball after all, so there's a lot of fun things that go with it.
So I asked you this question about tournaments, and I'll ask you it about Perfect Team as well. What three teams do you hate seeing matched up against yours in the playoffs?
Hate seeing. So not who I want to beat, but who I hate seeing matched up against me would definitely be the active managers, especially anybody who's has the right players, who's able to know how the game works and put out things that are difficult to go against you. Recently, API's been really hard. He took me out of the semifinals a few weeks ago. And it's always, I don't really want to play him in any time. I think this week I went 1-5 against him during the regular season. So that was not fun. Gen Extra 69 also, I think I went 1-5 against this week and somehow won a Game 7 last week en route to winning it all. Those are two players I don't want to see. I matched up against QC last week on the way as well. Don't like playing against his team, but he was during the season, he runs a different sort of pseudo squad. I think I was talking about earlier. And if he lets that run, that's fine. But he's a good active manager otherwise. And so in the playoffs, I don't want to see him. But if he's running that in the regular season, it's like basically any team that's scripting what they're going to do. So yeah, really anybody who actively manages, you don't want to have to see. And that's, of course, unsurprisingly, like most of the teams who make the playoffs are players who might not full active manage, but at least do it somewhat to, put that thumb on the scale to give them an advantage.
So most people consider you and Quanta Condor 1 and 1A when it comes to BFF's most successful managers. Who's the better manager between you two?
I don't know what you mean by better manager. I would say in-game day-to-day management, I'd probably put myself ahead of him. Managing the ability to generate income from missions, I would put him way ahead of me. The ability to do well and consistently in a variety of cap tournaments, especially, he's way better than I am. So I think, it depends on the success. Maybe the regular game, I think I might have a slight advantage, just from the grinding of the past however many weeks. But when it comes to the playoffs and like any other tournaments, he's excellent, and he's got much better modeling skills, much deeper understanding of how these things work, and actually puts out like the right team in the right places. And has had amazing success in all these cap tournaments throughout the season, and it's been a huge driver for his team.
So you mentioned that your heart won't be broken if the relegation Puma chases you down and has you for dinner, because you've got 2 PL championships. You've got the Noodles tournament victory. So what is left for you and important to you to accomplish with what remains of this game cycle, or are you just playing with house money at this point?
I mean, it definitely feels a bit like house money. I'm interested in this current, release cycle of the missions of what's coming out next and if there'll be toppers or not at the end of it. And I'm just saving all my packs right now that I'm trying winning just to wait and see if there's anything interesting to be pulled that's not usable, just for a mission cycle as opposed to actually like a usable card that you want to play. Maybe obviously when the Hall of Fame cards come out in January, there'll be something, but who knows? Maybe I'm holding these for another month until we rip them. And I know a lot of people were holding it for when the postseason collection came out after the final Face of the Franchise 6. I think I kept seeing your packs in the streams of your 300 plus packs sitting there waiting to be ripped. I was doing something similar. But yeah, a lot of people were just holding on to those and ripped them. And I got some great success with that as well, pulling some golds and silvers that I was selling for crazy high prices that first night on PS3 when that popped. But yeah, I mean, it's house money, but it's, it's still fun. Like I still prefer to win than lose. I'm looking forward again to the PTCS Winter Bronze coming up next weekend. Hopefully have it, you never know. Bronze is so volatile that I really think any team in the finals has a shot at winning. It's not like there's one team is going to be more dominant than the other. So yeah, anything can happen. And hopefully, we do better than otherwise, but if we don't, we get chased down and we're stuck with the BFF crew. It's always fun playing with them regardless. It's more fun banter in the chat than anything else. You don't really get that. I mean, you get some stuff up in the Perfect League, but it is a lot of competitive people. And it's not just a group of sort of, people you've been chatting with the entire season and how it goes on. So yeah, if we get caught, we get caught, and still fun things to do. But I think a lot of people are experiencing burnout in general, and just sort of, here we are in December. We're a few months away from the next real, PT22 coming out. So I think you'll see it be less competitive in general. There'll still be those people who are really pushing for it right now, who are going after the economy and are grabbing all the points so they can have all the top players. But I think that next level isn't there. So I think Perfect League will remain very competitive, but I think maybe the ability to get back to Perfect League might get weirdly easier if like some of those other good teams are just not being actively managed. We'll see.
Is there any chance you don't play Perfect Team 22?
I mean, there's always a chance. There'll be some drastic circumstances. Maybe something bad happened. But let's think in general. I'd like to try it at least. Start again. I don't know if I'm going to do BFF in the rules restriction in the current cycle. I'd say that's been the biggest. It's been the best community to be in right now. But at the same point in time, the restrictions on a team if you're trying to compete for Perfect League are very difficult. Like I said, having cards that you can't sell at the prices when they're out when you pull them, Like I remember when Maxfire was in the BFF chat for a long while, and he pulled when Brodrew's perfect or 100 card came out. I think he
Mm-hmm.
got 800K for it or something. The first one sold, which is just mind-boggling.
Right.
But stuff like that, like that's just not an opportunity you have.
Right.
And missing out on those easy wins and then missing on the ability to flip anything that's not silver. Like you can't find a cheap diamond in the auction house, buy it and resell it because you have to hold it for a week and who knows what the
Right.
price is going to go. So those restrictions have made it extra hard, I would say. But it's been really fun in the community. I don't want to leave at this point, but I don't know if next season I would want to, if I'm going to try for perfect league success, to try to hamstring the team again in that way.
So now is when I'm going to give you your dream bracket opportunity. So I'm gonna paint the picture for you. You win your third perfect league title, and you're able to beat 4 teams of your choice on the way to do so. Who are those teams, and in what order do you take them down?
Who are those teams and in what order? An interesting thought. I would say that I would really like to play QC again. It was fun playing against them in the PL playoffs. I'd like to go 7 against him though, so I don't want to have him first. I like playing API, and so I'd probably want to have him first because I think I have a better shot against him in a 5-game series than a 7-game series. It's really fun, so I'd probably stick him first. Second, how do I want to rank this? So I would probably say next one might be Mac Jacks. If he gets back, it'd just be fun to go against him. Like he was only up for a little bit before he went down after winning his titles and hasn't been back. So if I'm winning my third to tie him, it'd be fun to take him out. So let's put him second. Then let's put QC third. And then fourth, I'd have to put JDA for the simple fact that it would mean that he made Perfect League and also then made it to the finals. And if he actually made it to the Perfect League, make it to the finals, and then losing, might break the guy. But I don't want that. But it'd be great to have him there, so he actually is in the Perfect League and actually able to make it there after being so close so many times, not getting through, and having an amazing squad. I think that'd be really fun.
Awesome. Well, that concludes all the questions that I have for you, Jason. I'll give you the mic for any closing thoughts or words to share with the viewers tonight.
Nothing too crazy. I know there's one thing that you'd mentioned before about like different accounts and stuff on the questionnaire and what do I have. And so I've run the same license for all 3 cycles. So PT 19, 20, and 21. And I have 3 different teams on each of it, but it's really fun because when you get the next years, you get that bonus free gold pack, which is cool. One of them, the Dragons right now, I run as a stealing squad, which is fun. They all steal like 800 bases a season and try for that. Another team I was running, I'm using as more of a test case for different pitching options, running different closers as my openers, following it with like long men and stuff of different pitchers, and then the Time Lords. And I'd say work these other teams for the ability to gain knowledge, the ability to gain tournament data. You get a license, you get 3 teams. So for anybody who wants to just run their one team, you're leaving some information on the table. And like you can't trade cards between those 3 teams. You can't sell to each other in the auction house, but you can run them and you can do different things with those squads. I think Pid alluded to this in his interview where he was actually running the same team across I don't know how many different accounts he had, but with little tiny changes doing A/B testing, and that's great. Like anybody who wants to get good at this game, you need to maximize your resources. So that may be my one word of parting advice: is definitely use what you're given and be able to try to get a better understanding of the game.
Awesome. Well, that's Jason Mallet for you. Thanks again, Jason.
Thanks very much.
And we're back. So that was Jason Mallet walking us through how he plays this game, walking us through how he's found as much success as he's been able to. So let's go ahead and open up our giveaway. Let me go ahead and launch that now. So the way this is going to work is you put !ticket within the chat, and that's going to automatically enter you into the drawing. We are going to draw 2 winners tonight. 2 winners will get 10,000 perfect points each. If you are lucky enough to be that winner, I need you to DM me on Discord and hook me up with your Out of the Park Perfect Team username with the correct capitalization, and then we'll get you those perfect points right away. And then just for tonight, I want to thank Jason. Jason was very open with us. He pulled back the curtain a bit on how he's been successful within Perfect League, how he's been successful with his tournament teams, and really brought some data. He brought the receipts showing that as an active manager, as someone who's doing everything within our OOTP given power to impact our matchups, both from a hitting and pitching perspective, has an impact. Now, is it a 1-to-1 correlation? No. He had the correlation numbers on there, and there absolutely was a correlation, but it's no guarantee. It's no guarantee, so you can still push all the right buttons and find yourself the next relegation Puma meal. But it certainly puts you in a good spot, and I think that's a huge reason why Jason's had such success hanging around in Perfect League, making the playoffs all these weeks in a row, as well as winning 2 titles in the process. So congrats to you, Jason, and thank you for sharing with us all tonight. So we've got the drawing open now. We're going to draw 2 winners here in a second. But for the third 10,000 perfect point prize, we're going to do something different. I am going to click on my screen here, and it's going to reveal who my guest is next week. It's not a name that I anticipate anyone will recognize immediately. But the first person who can figure out who this person is and why they're relevant to a show like this will win the third allotment of 10,000 perfect points. So with that being said, off to the races. My guest next week will be Daniel Wallner. I think it's going to be a very interesting interview. I think it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an interesting conversation as we talk about how he has impacted the Perfect Team universe. So if you can tell me the relevance of Daniel Wallner to Out of the Park and to Perfect Team, you will win 10,000 perfect points. So while we're waiting on someone to figure that out, I'll go ahead and draw our other 2 winners. So closing the drawing in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. First winner is $2 Chuck. Congrats to you, $2 Chuck. Next is Dogberry99. So those are our 2 winners tonight. Congratulations again, guys. DM me on Discord and give me your Perfect Team username with the appropriate capitalization, and I'll get you those points as soon as possible. Let's see what we've got in the chat here. Computer programmer, sports statistician, marketing. Nobody's got... Oh, wait. Walnut's got it. Walnut's got it up top. He does the card art for Perfect Team. So Daniel Wallner is an artist in Germany, and he is contracted by Out of the Park to do all the card art here in Perfect Team. So all the cool ones that we've seen, all the various styles, these are all coming from Daniel Wallner, and next week we're going to be diving into his process, some of his favorites, and really have an inside look at what is one of the cooler elements of how this game comes together. So Walnut, congrats to you. I will get you those 10,000 perfect points, and you'll be on your way there. And that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Now you can catch the next show. It's going to be on Thursday. I'm not even showing up here. I disappeared. I didn't even recognize it. There I am. Our next show is going to be on Thursday for This Week in Perfect Team. After Chris drops the content, Kidneys and I will go through it all and share our thoughts with you. We'll also have our OK Boomer, OK Zoomer on there. And then we'll likely finish up with some more bronze insights for pitching. So make sure you don't miss that. And with that said, we're going to close things up. So thanks for watching.